So I started my internship at the Conference of Mayors in late May of 2012. And within a week or two of being there, I realized two pretty important things. The first is that local leaders, particularly mayors, because they're the closest to their constituents, really have a unique ability to take the lead, not just locally, but nationally, on a lot of really important issues, and speak with pretty honest and candid testimonials about what's happening in their cities and with their residents. And the second thing that I realized that was just as important for my own career in politics and public service was that the people who help mayors and other elected officials to articulate these messages and to tell their stories are pretty important to the whole political process and pretty important to the policymaking process. So by the time I left the internship in late July of that same summer, as much as I ever really left, which I'll get into in a minute, I sort of had two things in my head: that I wanted to potentially work in local government, and that I would really enjoy working in some sort of staff policy capacity. So, like I was saying, there was not really a clear break between me and the Conference of Mayors after my internship ended. As I was leaving, they said, you know, we're having this winter meeting in January. That's at the Capitol Hilton. It'll be around the inauguration, and we'd love to have you come back and do a lot of the same work that you did before. So writing speeches, editing different texts that the presiding officers of the conference were using, working on the different conference publications, that sort of stuff. So I got to once again be like right at the center of the action. In January, they flew me back for that, and it was a really interesting time to be at the conference because it was shortly after the Sandy Hook shootings, and mayors were really taking the lead on gun control. And unfortunately, that did not progress in the way that the mayors thought it would at the time, but it was really inspiring to see these officials take sort of such an active lead on this issue that was clearly incredibly important to them and their communities. So that was one way, and I ended up going to another winter meeting and another annual meeting with the conference in Las Vegas and then Washington, D.C. again. And then the other sort of major thing that I did with the conference was I ended up writing my thesis about the relationships between mayors and the federal government. Obviously, the U.S. Conference of Mayors is, I would say, the essential element of the relationship between mayors and the federal government. And I realized that this was something that was very important to our political system, but that not a lot of people were talking about. So with the support of the IOP, I got funding to conduct research last summer, and I ended up going around the country and interviewing mayors. I went sort of, during my time in Las Vegas, I tried to do a little bit of research there, and I ended up interviewing about 35 people, including 15 mayors, to talk about their relationships with the federal government. And I turned in my thesis on March 12th, and that went really well. I knew, like I said, shortly after the internship, that I definitely wanted to go into local government in some capacity. And I began sort of looking for jobs in different cities where I wanted to live, particularly along the eastern seaboard. And sort of putting my name out there. It was a big year for mayoral transitions, obviously, and talking to the staff leadership at the U.S. Conference of Mayors about different jobs or ideas that they had for ways that I could pursue this path. And then one day, out of the blue, I was actually in a haircut to go to another interview, and my phone rang, and it was Tom Cochran, the CEO of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And he said that they were starting a new partnership to bring $10 million in grant money to cities and to research institutions across the country to reinvigorate American manufacturing, and that he wanted me to lead that program for him. So right now, I'm the incoming program director of the U.S. Manufacturing Innovation Fund.